Laurel Canyon today at what we're calling the Thorgusen cluster, because there are 4 homes designed by the somewhat obscure industrial architect Robert Boulder Thorguson. And as an aside, if anybody knows how Boulder got his nickname, we'd love to know. And if you can find out any info on where he went to architecture school, we think it's USC. But we're in 2 homes today. This is his home from 1953, and it's just a magical post and beam, Japanese influenced mid-century modern home.
I mean, you're going to be the historical expert on this one, but I think of this house as in layers. Like, there's so many layers to it. So I always think of it from the architectural standpoint, like how many sheets of architectural drawings were there on this one? And so you're saying that there was likely only 4.
That's what I'm guessing, because Frank Lloyd Wright did Fallingwater with 4 sheets, and this guy was obviously a designer, builder, speculative developer. So I think he just had a very conceptual set that got permitted, and then he made up all these details as he went. But you got these kinds of moments where you've got a flitch beam that's a composite of 3 individual members bolted together. You've got the 2x on edge that spans between these larger structural beams and supports the roof. And then you've got that incredible composition there with a light box, beams that come beyond, and then vertical elements on edge. Just super exciting post and beam architecture.
And the way that he treated the roof line in general is he's got clerestories all around the home, but with the pie-pan roof, is what we're calling the pie-pan roof, you've got these triangulated clerestories, whereas here they're rectilinear, so it's still a nice play on structures.
Really dynamic roof form, and we learn something new every day. The listing agent called this form a pie-pan roof form that came out of the Googie tradition that John Lautner really popularized.
Mm-hmm. Well, should we go inside and check it out?
Let's go in and check it out. Wow, what a dramatic space this is. You feel the underside of the pie-pan roof, the triangular form. You see the structure, the light boxes, all the elements of this architecture are in here. And this is maybe 12 to 15 feet tall. Then you compress down into the kitchen and you lift back up into the dining area. So a lot of movement in section.
Yeah, and they're both triangulated on each end, so they kind of bookend these spaces in here. But I love the organization. Like, once you walk in through this little hallway here, the chimney, a lot like architects do, end up using it to divide space, but then you're able to flow around it. So there is some visual connections that you have, but then you're also using it as a space separator. And actually, this chimney kind of reminds me of the Hunt House a little bit for some reason.
It does. I think it's kind of in the middle of the room, standalone element. And it looks like a lot of original finishes, this stone hearth. This is new tile, maybe heath tile, new plaster. I'm guessing this was renovated in the 90s, and looks like they did some structural steel interventions here. I don't think this is quite a brace frame, but it's definitely a new structural steel post and bracket supporting that flitch beam, and very tastefully integrated into the language of the wood post and beam architecture.
Mm-hmm. You're saying that they may have been wood beams, they're just steel now because that was what was required. But if you think about it, the placement of the beams is great in terms of defining space, because this is the living room, and then it separates the kitchen, and then it separates the dining room. And so they are acting as spatial dividers.
Yep, love it. This is one of the 2 bedrooms, and I think of them as, both being primary bedrooms. I think I would want to live in this one, although that one is technically the primary. But what a great corner with the pool beyond and all of this structure happening. Little compression over the bed, make you feel cozy in your cave. Pops up to this skylight with Thorgusen's structural beams protruding into the opening, which adds a lot of visual excitement. And then, the post and beam structure, the integrated light boxes, so much detail in here.
Yeah, and for me, I'm always a fan of the visual connection to nature. It's a lot of the things that I gravitate towards. I remember my mom actually pointing out, look at the tree that you could see from this perspective, and I think that's where a lot of that comes from. But if you look through the skylight, you can see that pine tree there. So you're constantly connected to some version of the external world. And then, you know, you have a party or something, and you could see everyone out on your deck and see people swimming in the pool. There's this serenity to it.
And then you're actually standing in what used to be a koi pond that started up in that beautiful poured-in-place concrete retaining wall with a scupper that dropped it down to the next level, another scupper, and another scupper that ran and brought the koi pond actually into the room, which I love. I would have to restore that.
I mean, you would see koi ponds in your bedroom. I mean, it's not a lot like some of these vacation spots that do these kinds of things, but he just decided to do this in the 50s, really. And then I want to pay special attention to the way he detailed this fence, because you could just do it in any other way, but those are all just 2-bys,
Yeah.
like cut differently and positioned differently, and so it's got this really cool flair to it. And then he does it to the wall too, where there's all these, like, you know, what would you call that? I was going to create a word there, but what would you call it?
It's actually sort of like a Rietveldian composition, and you see it in the entry gate, the driveway gate. You see it here in the fence. You see it in the fence of the house next door, and that beautiful stained glass element that's incorporated. But you know what I was imagining is Boulder out here himself on the weekends, nailing those fence elements together, because you can't just turn that over to somebody, because it's sort of a random design, but it's really hard to get random in, you know, to execute random, because people will start introducing their own patterning. So I bet that's hand built by Boulder Thorguson.
I'm sure it was, in terms going back to that design build feature that we were talking about earlier. You know, I'm always just amazed by the proportions of these bedrooms. I mean, this is really all I would need. I'm totally comfortable in here.
I agree. This would be my bedroom suite, but the other one's actually bigger and has taller ceilings and a fireplace and a beautiful spa bathroom that you walk in with a big skylight. So you've got your choice. And really, this could be the guest house to the main Thorgusen house next door. Just depends. They're both for sale, either separately or together as a compound.
Are we going to get to tour that one?
Let's go up there now.
Let's do it.
Now we're at the second home in this compound, what I'm thinking of as the Big Thorgusen. And this one was built in '57. And they're both listed for sale separately and together. $9 million for the compound, or $3.4 million for the smaller house, $5.6 million for this house. And this is pure Japanese roots of modernism. You know, Gropius went to the Katsura Imperial Villa in Japan and basically came back and invented modernism. I know that's kind of an armchair interpretation, but...
Yeah, for me, again, going back to, you're the historical guy, I'm just going to point out things that I'm seeing here, but these stairs and a deck/stairs are a perfect representation of what's going on in these houses. Between the different, in this one specifically, there are some split levels here, but look at all the way that the structure is detailed here. A lot of the house down there and a lot of the house up here are detailed exactly the same way. So it's really comprehensive and cohesive that way.
Yeah, and it's really intricate woodwork. You know, the wood posts support these beams that project beyond. And I love this screen, solar screen in the pie pan googie form of the other house that I think the remodel architect Leonardo Chalupowicz introduced in the mid-90s when he was working for the Levi family that purchased the home and did this remodel and addition.
And on this one, as you're crossing over from one space to the other, you're crossing over a pool here, which is pretty remarkable. I mean, you could see people swimming underneath you as you walk across.
Yep, and then you've got this fence. It's a screen with stained glass elements embedded in between the vertical elements, which is really exciting.
This house reminds me of translucency. You can kind of see everybody from every location. It still feels private, but it is translucent. You're not seeing everything, you're just kind of getting glimpses of people from up here, down, and down, up.
That's exactly what Rick Tyberg, the listing agent, said from Douglas Elliman. He said he was in the kitchen the other day and he realized he could see up into the 2-story studio. And if we didn't have weather in this city, you wouldn't really need any glass and it would be like a tree house. You know, it's completely open and you can see from one end of the home to the other in both directions.
I'd like to see it at night because I have a feeling that it would look a lot like a lantern, you know, and the detailing on the outside of the lantern as well.
A Japanese lantern.
Exactly.
Let's go inside.
Let's go.
This is one of my favorite homes ever, anywhere in the world. And the overall composition is kind of like a little Japanese fishing village. You know, every room is its own pavilion, most of which have 3 exterior walls. We're walking in a compressed space that pops up into the kitchen and looks out at the pool and the living room beyond. We've got the dining room over here with these 3 exterior walls. I mean, this just reminds me so much of a tree house or a little village. And then each of these spaces is connected by bridges and walkways and all of this structure, this gorgeous structure.
Brian, I don't know if you noticed, now being in here, I really want to see the floor plan because if you look at this beam, this beam goes from this exterior here and that travels across the entire portion of the property. I was looking at the beam through the kitchen and that one actually makes its way back on the other side of the home to the exterior. So talk about going from interior to exterior because those beams actually travel across the pool as well. Really, really cool detail.
And then here's that cruciform column you were talking about that reminds us of the A. Quincy Jones houses in Crestwood Hills. And then this joinery where, you know, there are 3 2-by elements that come down in between this double beam and support the roof structure up above.
And these faceted bolts that they've got here, they're also in a rhythm because they've got 2 on this post here, then they've got 1, then they go back to 2, and then they go back to 1. So everything has been thought out in its entirety.
And that's the kind of thing that is that big linear algebra equation of what sums up to a magical experience. It's things like this floor where they've oriented the wood in a perpendicular direction from the entry to pronounce this bridge that goes all the way to the end to an outdoor deck. And then in here, you know, we've got this pop-up in the living room that just floods the room with natural light, compression, release.
Looking back towards this way at this dining room, again, going back to the point that this home has a constant connection to the exterior world, to the trees out here. I mean, like you mentioned that this is a tree house. It feels like it's a tree house.
It really does. And then again, this living room has 3 exterior walls. There's this bridge that goes over a water feature, the pool. You know, you can swim under this bridge from one side of the house to the other. And you've got these outdoor decks and walkways and step downs that are really treated like a fishing village.
I always think of spaces like this the way I would if, number one, if I were living in it, but then also I want to know what a party would look like in here, having somebody sit down on the couches here, somebody in the pool, somebody in the kitchen. You kind of get visuals of everyone doing something. It would be like a nice orchestration, is that a word?
Yeah, no, it would. And you know, you could probably have 250 people in here and not feel crowded.
Yeah.
You got a 6 or 8 person outdoor dining table, a 6 or 8 person indoor dining table, outdoor seating areas with fire pits, hot tub, pool, and just so many individual spaces. One thing I was really enjoying was when I was in this room and you were at the other end and we could see each other from one end of the house to the other.
Yeah, actually when I was down here, I could see you guys up on the deck here, so that was also a thing. Should we take them upstairs and take a look at the
primary suite.
The addition?
Yep. We're coming up into the primary suite that was commissioned by the Levi family in the mid-90s. They hired the architect Leonardo Chalupowicz to do this 2-story a carport below and this sort of 1.5-story studio space connected to the bedroom, bathroom. And this was the Skase Levi family. Skase Levi was half of Juicy Couture, and my understanding is this was a studio workspace at that time for them.
So they were using this as a studio workspace, but personally, I would probably use this as a bedroom. I feel like I would have my bed off of this cabinetry here, and then I could just face these trees and, I don't know, meditate, read a book. I don't know.
I know, this is a pretty spectacular space. And it's really compatible, you know, this is all structural steel. It's post and beam structural steel architecture with wood flitch beams like the original wood flitch beams. And this could also be a library. I mean, you've got the ladders on either side that roll on tracks to access the upper shelves. And it's kind of a multi-purpose space. It's being used as a sitting room, which would make sense being attached to the primary bedroom, but could be the bedroom itself, could be a studio space, could be, you know, TV room.
And I don't know what was below us before, but this is now acting as a carport as well. So you've got some shade for your cars, and then should we take them upstairs to the primary?
Yeah, let's check out that bedroom, bathroom.
So if we're talking about the height of the space here,
Yep.
we don't need a measuring tape or a laser pointer. We got a human, what did you say you're at the top of your...
8 feet to that finger.
So how tall is this space then?
It looks like it's 11 to me. It's not quite 12. And then you've got this literal quotation of shoji screen, you know, which we're not making this stuff up. Modernism has its roots in Japanese architecture.
I mean, we might be making some of this stuff up.
Yeah, but, you know, somebody will bust us if we're way out of line. I love this tall wall of glass, the structural steel. Again, you know, this is current code. You know, you have to do a structural steel brace frame to hold up these posts and beams, where back in the day, in 1957, that's all wood. But you've got this dialogue between the two. And I love the way they made these wood flitch beams
to match,
you know, going beyond the structural steel to have a dialogue with that language.
Being up here, this is almost like a homage to this structure here, because you get a full glimpse of it, the whole entire structure.
And full treehouse, you know, we're in the treetops up here.
So Brian, are we indoors or outdoors?
Feels like we're outdoors. I mean, we've got glass on either side. We're looking out to nature, but we're really walking across a bridge from the private space to the public space with the outdoor dining room and swimming pool in between.
So again, a lot of the detailing that's happening above is also happening here below. Look at the way this beam here, or these counterparts are detailed right above this pool here. Quite exquisite.
It's basically 7 or 8 separate pavilions with exterior walls, like a Japanese fishing village. It's like each room is its own hut or house, and they're suspended up off the ground on this post and beam system with this kind of metaphoric creek running through. It's a swimming pool that you can swim under the bridge from one side to the other, but it's really evocative of historic Japanese design and construction. It's very well integrated, the remodel. My understanding is this was a wreck when the Levi's bought it in '94.
Yeah.
And they undertook a substantial remodel and addition and did a great job.
So for clarity, not knowing what is old or new, we like it. Like we want it to be that way.
Yeah, this is one of the best houses I've ever visited in the world. And we're really grateful to Rick Tyberg of Douglas Elliman, the listing agent. These properties are for sale together as a compound or separately. I like thinking 3, 4, 5, 6. The house next door is for 3.4. This one's for 5.6 million, or the compound for 9 million. What are we?
We are architectural brokers, and if you guys are looking to purchase something like this or other architectural properties, Brian and I can help you with that.
We'd love to get you in here. Happy to write up your offer, and you've got to see it. It's not to be missed.